5 billion? That's how many photographs we humans take each and every day in the second decade of the 21st century. Anything that common lacks mystery. It was different in the last century. I was walking into a restaurant in Lincoln, Nebraska, when I looked up and saw a photograph on the wall. As I got closer, it came to life. May 31st, 1931, 13th and O Street in downtown Lincoln. It gave me an uncanny feeling, as if I could step into it, kind of like a time machine. A drugstore with soda fountain service. Aunt Betty's bread, wonderful flavor. The Strand Theater. Chesterfield Cigarette Day. They satisfy, that's why. Men and women rushing across the street with umbrellas drawn against the rain. They don't know it, but this rainy day is a blessing. In a little more than 2 years, a major dust storm will hit out west with winds over 50 miles an hour. And so will begin what nobody in this photo can imagine, the Dust Bowl. Odd thoughts to have as you sit down to a bowl of tortilla soup. Can a photo take you into the past? I once read a novel called Time and Again by a writer named Jack Finney. It's 1970. A man is taking part in a time travel experiment. From his window in New York City, he can see the Dakota Building looming over Central Park. For days, he stares at a photo of that identical location, 90 years in the past. And the experiment works. He travels back in time to January 21st, 1882, until he's actually there. What he can't imagine is the future. In 1980, John Lennon, who lived in the Dakota, was assassinated right outside. And there's the movie called Somewhere in Time. Christopher Reeve plays a young man who sees a photo of a beautiful woman on the wall of his hotel. Through self-hypnosis, he travels back in time to 1912 and meets the woman, played by Jane Seymour. Of course, they fall in love. So, can you use a photo for time travel? Do the ghosts of the past live in the present? Let's go to the same location as the one in the photo, exactly 94 years later. It's May 31st, across from the northeast corner of 13th and O Street. I'm here with architect Bob Ripley, who grew up in Lincoln. So Bob, looking at this photo from 90 years ago, what do you see?
Downtown Lincoln, at the time this photograph was taken, was the spot in the city. If there was business, if there was entertainment, if there was banking, if there was anything you wished to do in the city of Lincoln, downtown was where it would happen. There were no suburbs, so to speak, in terms of major shopping or business areas. It was all concentrated in downtown Lincoln. And bear in mind, when this photograph was taken, Lincoln was 1/4, 25% the size that it is today.
It was poet Allen Ginsberg who named O Street Zero Street. Some say it's the longest main street in America. It's definitely one of the noisiest. But what did it sound like back then?
This was largely a pedestrian zone with a few cars. Now it is largely an automotive zone with just a few pedestrians. So it has kind of turned 180 degrees from what it was when this photograph was taken.
Where'd all the people go? Where do they walk now?
No kidding, no kidding.
There's one building in the photo that hasn't changed, at least on the outside, the Stewart Building.
very beautiful neoclassical, kind of neo-Gothic building in the background, designed by Ellery Davis. This building is one of downtown's true architectural landmarks.
And the granite office building that dominates what we see today still retains the shape of the old J.C. Penney store, which had its grand opening in 1950. In fact, from the 1930s into the 80s and beyond, places like downtown Lincoln were all about walking, talking, eating, and shopping. Bob Ripley remembers it well.
My mom would bring us down because she didn't have a sitter to leave us with, and she'd bring us down, and we were wandering around behind her from one location to the other as she did her shopping.
Across the street from 13th and O is Miller and Payne, the department store once famous for its tea room and cinnamon rolls. It's an office building now, but back in the day, Miller and Payne rivaled Amazon.
If I lived in Dallas and wanted to shop for my family that all lived in Lincoln, I could call Miller and Payne. They would shop for me and deliver all the packages and take care of everything. That's just one of hundreds of services they provided. Plus, it had location. Bingo, right at the prime intersection of downtown Lincoln, 13th and O.
What do you think these people would think if they could be suddenly transported here onto this corner?
I think they'd be astonished. I think they'd look around as if they were on another planet. And they would see some familiarity. There are some things they might remember from their life, but I think they would walk around and see people walking down the sidewalk with a phone in their hand and texting someone. I think they'd just think they were on another planet.
Time to take a picture of my own with my new iPhone. Now and then. I have to confess, time travel has eluded me. But someday, 90 years from now, someone might look at the photo I just took and wonder what life was really like back in the 21st century. When they see the cars, the trucks, the SUVs driving by on Zero Street, will they wish they could tell the people inside those vehicles what happened next?